Welcome back to another Drive Time Chat. I was doing some meditation and study this morning, and the thought came to my mind that it would be very interesting to think of what the world would be like, and even what the potentials of our existence would be like if Jesus Christ had never came to earth. There's a lot of people try to dismiss that he even existed, that he's simply just a myth or a fable that helps us find our moral compass. And obviously that is not the case. There have been some very influential teachers and prophets along the way. And some of them had things to do and were connected with God, and some weren't. Obviously, the Old Testament patriarchs and prophets were all part of God's plan for us. But there were some others that obviously taught us some things about humanity that were not connected in any way, shape, or form to God, and through their own personal practices were what we would call pagans or polytheists. And yet they had an influence on the world and the culture, and we still hear their names today. But if Jesus Christ had never come, it would be interesting to see what the world would be like. What if he had never been a reality? Would we be here today? Would I be sitting here in my car, and would there even be cars? And if I was sitting here in my car, what would I be talking about if I wasn't referring to the scriptures and their focus on Jesus Christ? Wow. We often get so involved in our stuff, and we get so involved in the processes of life, the things that, pull on us and desire our skills and our abilities and our talents, and then sometimes even in our entertainment values and the things that we want to do and the things we want to experience and the things that we like to feel that way about. And again, not all of those are wicked and wrong. It's the idea that we oftentimes do not understand our lives from a clear spiritual perspective. We are spiritual beings living in human houses. We are not human beings. And I think that's probably one of the biggest lies that's been perpetuated to us. When we can look beyond the house and see who lives in it, they can be our friends, they can be our neighbors, they can be our co-workers, they can be anybody, but the inhabitants of the house are what's important, not the house. I know some very wealthy people who live in pretty basic homes. I mean, you would never know by looking at their house or the car they drive that they're wealthy beyond measure. On the other hand, I know some people who look very wealthy and don't have a dime in their pocket because they lived right hand to left. They're in debt over their head, upside down, and around every corner you can imagine. And so what we have to do is see that same principle in who we are as spiritual beings living in human bodies. The body doesn't matter. And that's why all of this stuff about racism and cultural ethnicity and all of this stuff is all man's problem, because man doesn't see the truth of the reality of what we are. We are spiritual beings, and I think everybody gets caught up in that to some measure or another, and it's because man focuses on the flesh, on what he can see, what he can feel, what he can smell, what he can taste, what he can hear. And those five senses are the focus of their life and not the spiritual existence of who they really are. Because if that was the case, we would obviously be thinking more about eternity than we do about where we're going to eat our next meal or who we're going to have fellowship with in the next few hours, days, weeks, and months. And there's a lot there that we need to deal with, because when we understand the importance of our eternal existence as spiritual beings, it makes a big difference in how you live every day. And as the song that we used to sing more frequently than we do, and probably need to sing it more, in our worship services is that song that says, "Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face. And the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace." And that's the difference between living by the Spirit and living by your five senses in the flesh. Paul says, if you live by the flesh, you'll die by the flesh. If you live in the Spirit, you'll have life. And again, that's not an easy thing to do. And for any of us, especially, and I'll say this without any condemnation, but especially North Americans who are tempted so much by experience, by stuff and materialism, and all of those things that draw us continually away from the presence of the Lord. We have to be strong, and we have to know where our focus is. And that's important as we make our journey. And I'm about there. I've just about made my journey. So I hope you have a good day, and we'll be back soon. Take care.